Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 15th chapter, text number 38. Hamsa Shriyor Vyajanayo Shiva Vayulola Chubrata Patra Shashike Sarashikarambum. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The sages, headed by Sanaka Rishi, saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. As he came forward, accompanied by his own associates bearing all paraphernalia, such as an umbrella and a chamara, fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently, like two swans, and due to their favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon, or ice melting due to a gust of wind.
So we are seeing in this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages were upset with the two doorkeepers and they cursed them. Just then the Lord appeared along with his consort, Lakshmi Devi. We saw that in the last verse. And in this verse, further, the Lord appeared with his associates. And all of them carried many paraphernalia. Swapumbhi, his own personal associates. Pratihruta Aupayikam, they were carrying appropriate paraphernalia. Agatam, when the Lord appeared. And they, the sages, Achakshata, the sages now saw Vishnu. Achakshata, Aksha Vishayam. Now he had become an object of their sight. Achaksha, Aksha Vishayam. Achakshata, Aksha Vishayam. They saw the Lord who has now become a subject matter of their sight. Aksha Vishayam. Swasamadhi Bhagyam. Formerly they had seen the Lord, but was in Samadhi. So in their deep meditation, and in their meditation they had seen Samadhi Bhagyam. And how did he appear now? The associates were offering chamar. Vyajanayaha, Vyajanayo, and there was a cool, pleasant breeze coming from the chamar. So chamar should be done nicely so that there's a cool, pleasant breeze. Shiva Vayu, Vayu, Shiva Vayu, very pleasant breeze. And the two Vyajanas, they were offering them on either side, and they looked like Hamsashriyo, like two white swans on both sides, as the Lord was Agatam, was coming. And they were also carrying a Shubhra Atapatra. They were carrying a umbrella, and it was a white umbrella. Shubhra Atapatra. Shashi Kesara Shikarambhum. And there was pearls, Kesara, pearls decorating the Atapatra, the umbrella, and because they were offering the cham, Vyajanayaha, Vyajana, and there was Shiva Vayu, there was pleasant breeze, and all these Kesara were Lola, they were also moving gently. And it looked like Shashi, Shikara Ambhum. It looked like the white umbrella looked like a moon, and these pearls dangling, and they look like nectar falling from the moon. Shikara ambum, Shashi Shikara ambum. So it's a poetic way of saying this, that it was very beautiful. The sages headed by Sanaka Rishi, they saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Achakshata, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance. Swasamadhi Bhagyam had now actually become visible to their eyes. Aksha Vishayam. Came forward, Tam Agatam, accompanied his own associates, Swapumbihi, bearing all paraphernalia, Pratihruta Aupayikam Pratihruta, all the paraphernalia, such as an umbrella and a chamara, fan, Atapatra, Shubra Atapatra and chamara. The white bunches of hair moved very gently, like two swans. Hamsa Shriyo Vyajanayoho. And due to their favorable breeze, Shiva Vayu, the pearls garlanding the umbrella, Kesara, also moved like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon. Ambu, or ice melting. Basically, this is a section of the grand appearance of the Lord. Give us a sense about the Lord's majestic splendor, the regality that surrounds him, and the opulences, and how he appears. He does not alone appears. He appears his most of the time. It's in the and here we are seeing Swapumbhihi along with his associates, all of them carrying different paraphernalia, umbrella, and offering chamar, and in that way the Lord appears. So this is to give us an idea. This is to help us understand the Lord's position and how the Lord appears in some years ago, we had a President of India visiting our temple here. And we had gone and invited him in Delhi. And then he agreed to come. And when he came, there were a lot of preparations made. And security personnel, protocol officers, they would advise us what he should do, etc. And finally, when he came, he didn't come alone. There was a motorcade of 24 cars all over on Hare Krishna Hill. By the time the long motorcade came and he got off, and there were a few cars before and a few cars behind him, and all of them stood. The next 2 hours or so that he was there, all these cars were parked on the road, and all big officials like that. And when the president comes, it is a protocol that the chief minister himself must come, the governor must come from the state. So all of them were there. So it's not a small thing when the president comes. And quite recently we had President of India coming to our temple in Vrindavan, which is far away. And there when he came, 3 helicopters landed. And so we were all waiting there and to receive him. Plus the governor's helicopter came from Lucknow. So there was another one. And then these 3 Indian Air Force helicopters, massive helicopters, and they all landed there. So when we see in this material world a big person coming, it's marked with his entourage and all of these kind of manifestations of his power and position. And that's natural. And so here we see when the Lord is appearing, naturally, and he also has his associates and entourage, all of them appear, and it's a grand appearance. Long ago, I remember one interaction with a doctor. I had fallen sick, not very sick, to some extent sick, and I had gone to a doctor. And this doctor was a very friendly, very, he talks a lot. He engages in a conversation with patients. That's one of his techniques, and puts them in comfort and talks to them nicely. So he started talking to me, and he saw me because I was a devotee. Then he started asking, I can't remember the exact subject that we discussed. Something I mentioned about Krishna, Radharani, Lakshmi, Vishnu, and something like that. When you should please Lakshmi, then Narayana will be pleased. You please Radharani, Krishna will be, something like that we were talking. And then he heard all that and he said, very interesting. All of these are anthropomorphic concepts. Meaning, he was saying that anthropomorphic means having human attributes. Like here we see, we have experience. If you want to get the check from a big man, our devotees often do. They go and please his wife. And when the wife is pleased, there is a good possibility you will get the check. So these kind of things are human experiences. And so some people think and say that our human ideas we are imposing on God. So this is called anthropomorphic concepts. So this is what he was trying to say. And of course, I don't remember what I said. Maybe I was not well enough to answer this kind of a question. So anyway, so people think that these are all ideas that have come from human society. We are mapping onto the spiritual domain. And this is a kind of a human creation. Basically, it's an idea that it's a human creation. So that's how some people think. And Mahavadi also has a similar idea. And these are all just stories. Vishnu having 4 arms. Okay, here we have a human experience of 2 arms. And because God, after all, he should have something more than arms, and let's say 4 hands. Have ideas. So these are all just psychology. And they think you should some idea, some good message behind that. You must appreciate. So how do Acharyas explain this? If you study none of the Acharyas, will say like this. Especially the Vaishnava Acharyas. They never described these as mythological stories, human idea carried for the spiritual realm. It's not the kind of, no Acharya has ever said these things. Shankaracharya said, Narayano paro vyakta. He said, yes, Narayana's existence is incidental. So none of the Acharya said this. And Prabhupada also this, the line of the Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, none of our Acharyas in our Sampradaya, none of them have said that these are all mythological, imaginary, some human idea imposed on divinity. This is not the understanding. Prabhupada explained this. Prabhupada, here is explained this. They saw Achakshara, Akshavishaya. It's not Akshaya. His subject matter is not an Indriya Vishaya. But here, Achakshaka Akshavishayam, they began to see him. So, Vishnu's position, he's not Akshavishaya, he's not Indriya Vishaya. He's seen, he can be accessed by our senses. This is again and again in the Vedic literature. Atha Shri Krishna Namadhi na bhavet grahyam indriyahi. Indriya grahya na bhavet. Access him. He is beyond the senses. Beyond sense perception. This is what the Vedic literature have often explained Krishna's position. And Srila Prabhupada also says that, yes, Vishnu or Krishna is transcendental. He is beyond real sense perception. He is not the subject matter of the mundane sense. And he is beyond the range of human sense and intellect. This is the understanding. This understanding is presented in Vedic literatures, and Srila Prabhupada also says the same thing. Is Krishna's reality, the reality of Krishna or Vishnu, is equal our mundane senses. Our mundane senses can only access a certain amount of reality, not even all of the material reality. Right? Our senses cannot understand. Our eyes cannot see the mind and intelligence. No, people have visions and they are working and it is working. We can see the effects of the mind and intelligence. Although we can the mind and intelligence. So our sense have limitation. Even our mind and intelligence has limitation. What they can access in this reality as reality. So, this is a reality beyond what is accessible to the mind, senses, and intelligence, and Krishna or Vishnu belongs to that higher reality. So, our senses don't have the power to access that realm of reality. That is the important point. Just like suppose you have a mobile phone, and your mobile phone, you don't have international, you only have facility to make local calls, India calls. You can't make any call outside of India. Somebody comes and tells you, I have a friend in America, and this is my friend. And you use your phone and try to call that number. It's an American number. The call will not go through. Many times it will not go through. Now some say, no, you charge properly, then it may go through. You can have charge many times, still it will not go through. Somebody may say, no, you change your phone version, get an upgrade, a better phone. You can get a better phone, still you try, it will not go through. Go to a place where there is signal and try. You can do anything you want. You will not get the call. Then can you say, see, I've tried so much. I don't think you have a friend in America. Or even better, I don't think there is something called America. Because if there is, I may be able to make a phone call and talk. No, it is not so. Just because our phone, our instruments cannot reach out, we cannot say such a reality does not exist. This is the principle that is used by the Acharyas, by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave very contemporary articulation of this idea that this spiritual reality is beyond the access, beyond the powers of our senses. This is the perception, this is the perspective that is presented in the Vedic literatures. Now, if this is the reality, how do we ever know that reality? Is there a way to know that reality? Yes. Although the senses cannot perceive, Atha Shri Krishna Namadhi Nabhave Grahyam Indriyaihi Sevonmukho hi Jihvadau Swayameva Spurati Adaha. This is the way, this is the method that is given in the Vedic literatures, how to perceive the transcendental reality. And here in this verse, in today's verse, also it's described that he became Akshavishayam, although he is not Akshavishayam, he is Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means not accessible to the senses, because he was Samadhi Bhagyam, Swasamadhi Bhagyam. Lord is seen in Samadhi, in trance. This is the idea. The senses ordinarily cannot perceive. But there is a process. If we follow the process, then we will be able to perceive the Lord in Samadhi. There are many verses in the Bhagavatam. One of them is the verse spoken by Sukadeva Goswami in his prayers, which we used to chant, or we chant sometimes. Yangri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya dhiyanu pashyanti tattvam atmanaha. Samadhi dhaya anupashyanti, dhiya anupashyanti. In the Vedic literatures, like in this verse in the Bhagavatam, it is describing how anupashyanti means to see. The Vedic literature talks about tattvadarshibhihi, those who have seen the truth. They are seeing the truth. So there is a way to see that truth. How to see the truth? Dangi abhidhya amadi dhautaya dhiya anupashyanti. Hitvam atmanaha. Atma tattvam. Atma here refers to Paramatma. Vishnu. Vishnutva. So, tattvam atmanaha tattvam anupashyanti. How one can see that? Yadangri abhidhya samadhi dhautaya. Angri means the lotus of the Lord. Angri. Yadangri abhidhyana. Does abhidhyana of Angri, the lotus feet of the Lord, and becomes mature. Samadhi, reaches Samadhi, fully absorbed in the lotus meditation of the lotus feet of the Lord. And by such meditation, dhauti, yadangri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya. Dhautaya, dhauti means to become purified. And when one's intelligence is purified, samadhi dhautaya dhiya. Dhautaya dhiya. When one's intelligence is purified, then anupashyantihi tattvam atmanaha. This is the way one can perceive the transcendental reality. And then in this verse, Shukadeva Goswami says, Vadanti chaitat kavaya yatharucham. And most people don't have this, come to this realization. Most people don't take the trouble of actually following the process, purifying the senses, purifying their consciousness by intense meditation, absorption on the lotus feet of the Lord. And hence they don't have a perception of the truth. But they still talk about the truth. And they talk the way without understanding. That is why innumerable and opinions have come about in this world about God. Those who have seen God, truly God, they have one understanding, all the bona fide acharyas. So, vadanti chaitat vadanti yatharvam vadanti kavayo. As they want their own opinions, they talk. But the Lord can be perceived in this way. Same Mukundo Bhagavan Prasidatam. May that Lord Mukunda be pleased with me and reveal his true nature. That's the prayer of Shukadev Goswami. So, Lord can be, like it explained here, Samadhi Bhagyam. They were seeing the Lord in their Samadhi. And now he became Aksha Vishayam. They were able to see him. In another place, Bhagavatam, which we also chant, we used to chant, or probably we chant occasionally, called the Hamsa Guhya prayers in the Bhagavatam. A similar idea is described. Hamsa Guhya prayers were actually spoken by Prajapati Daksha. And generally, Daksha is not considered to be an exalted person. Of course, he's in one sense in the material domain considered an exalted person because he serves the Lord in his mission of creation of this material world and populating the world. But still, his prayers are considered very special, and it has become part of them because Bhagavatam explains that he did not compose those prayers himself. Already those prayers were there in literature since in time. And so, prayers which were already present in the Vedic literatures, which he was trained in, so he offered those prayers, and hence Hamsa Guhya prayers have a transcendental significance, and it is part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in this verse, in the Hamsa Guhya prayers, Prajapati Daksha says, Yaiyate kevalyasva samsthaya hamsaya tasmai shudmane namaha. Here again, Hamsaya, the Lord's position is completely pure. Hamsa, generally in Sanskrit means pure. Also to the one which is white, pure. And the exact persons are called Paramahamsa because they are very pure. Sai, Shuchi Sadne, is pure again. Padma means an abode of purity. Only ones who has become completely pure. Sadmane yaiyate kevalayas just nupashyanti tattvadarshana, seeing the Lord, experience to experience, to receive Kevala means in complete absorption. His original position means that Lord Hamsaya should be studied when it is in a complete purity to experience. So this is the position that the Vedic literatures have consistently presented. Whether it's in the ancient prayers of Hamsa Guhya, whether it is in the prayers of Shukadev Goswami, or it is in the Padma Purana which Prabhupada often quotes. Ata Shri Krishna Namadhi na bhaved grahyam indriyaihi sevon mukhohi jihvadav. In one place in the Bhagavad Gita, when Prabhupada is quoting this verse, Prabhupada translates the words sevon mukhaha as when one is spiritually saturated with transcendental service. When our consciousness is spiritually saturated, right? Saturated, we understand that when it is completely absorbed And nothing else is there. Remember in chemistry we used to study concentrated, saturated solution. Means it is fully saturated. Nothing else, you can't add any more salt and it won't dissolve anymore because the solvent is now saturated. In the same way, when our consciousness is saturated, no material conception, no material desires, no material contamination, no anartha, when it is saturated, spiritually saturated, in that state one can perceive. This is the message in the Vedic literatures consistently. So now we can see the Vedic literature is talking about samadhi. Here samadhi bhagyam, dhyanu pashyanti, samadhi dautaya, and shuchi sadmane, spiritually saturated. Which means, if we want to have a perception, a spiritual perception, a transcendental experience, we have to have this. These words indicate there's a certain amount of intensity, there's a certain amount of dedication and absorption that is essential. It's not some kind of a frivolous thing. And if we take it in a very frivolous way, like Shukadev Goswami says, Vadanti chaitat kavayo yata arucham, we will have our own understanding based on our mental speculation. But this is not a subject matter of mental speculation, spiritual reality. It is something that we can experience. And for that, it requires a certain dedication, certain intensity, certain absorption. So we should remember this, because life takes us through certain difficulties. When we are doing our service, even with devotees, very often difficulties will come about. Somebody will speak to us in a very harsh way, we will be hurt. Sometimes we'll be discouraged by some experience, or we attempt something and we don't get the result, some discouragement may be there. All of these kind of things will happen and is bound to happen in the life of a devotee. At that time, we should remember, what is the purpose of our existence? What is the purpose of what we are doing? Isn't it for that single purpose of that spiritual experience that we have come to Krishna consciousness? It is not for some better material experience, for a more enhanced and amplified sensual experience. We are here. It is not for some kind of an honor and distinction and adoration and good words from other people. That's not the purpose we are here. So we should remember that it is for that transcendental spiritual experience of the Lord, which the Vedic literatures are promising, the great acharyas are offering. It is for that. And for that, it requires a certain amount of intensity, dedication. And when we remember that, and all of these material difficulties will become very simple and trivial. We will know how to face all these things. This is the greatest spiritual potency that comes about by our absorption, and that we can face any of the difficulties in this material world. So, here we see that these sages, now they saw what they were seeing in their trance. Now they saw face to face. And throughout the purport, Srila Prabhupada has explained that yes, this is the way it is. At one stage of spiritual development, one will see the Lord in the heart as Paramatma. And when one becomes more mature, in other words, in our spiritual progress, there are gradations. We can become mature, and become most mature. And when one becomes most mature, Prabhupada is making a statement. Just like we see other things, we can see. Thus, the devotee constantly sees the Lord within his heart. And in a more mature stage, one can see the same Lord directly as we see everything else. You see? And Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting all of these ideas so that we gradually understand the transcendental technique, the science and the technique of spiritual perception. And here in these cantos, early cantos of the Bhagavatam, describing about how Vishnu can be seen and how the great sages saw Vishnu in all regality, transcendental regality. Because Bhagavatam further intends to present even more higher concept, higher aspects of that absolute truth. Because the highest conception of the absolute truth is not even Vishnu, it is Krishna. And that Krishna, when the Bhagavatam describes about Krishna, and when you see Krishna in Goloka Vrindavana, he will not come with the transcendental regality and the splendor that you are seeing in the Vaikuntha Loka. He will just come with cows and calves, holding a flute, holding a stick, with simple cowherd boys. That is the highest conception of absolute reality. If you cannot have Vishnu conception, if you cannot experience Vishnu, no, forget it. You cannot have access to even higher concepts of the absolute truth, Krishna. So we can see here how the Bhagavatam is gradually training us about the transcendental reality, gradually understanding. And what is this happening here? With all the chamara, beautiful swan-like, appearing like swan, and on all the different paraphernalia, with the associates in grandeur, Vishnu made his appearance. Actually, this is Shantarasa. This is Shantarasa and Dasya Rasa, which is prominent in Vaikuntha. Now, if you want to know the highest aspect of the absolute truth, then you must be familiar and you must know even higher rasas and what the transcendental interactions with the associates in higher rasa is like. So, Bhagavatam is gradually preparing us, telling us about the different transcendental realm, how this transcendental realm of Vaikuntha, how the interactions and the pastimes happen there. Then we will be able to understand even further about Krishna and Krishna's reality. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada.